Welcome to Ortho Insider Season 2. This is the Canadian Orthopedic Association's podcast that goes behind the scenes of orthopedic surgery in Canada. And today we're very excited to welcome back a guest from last year, Dr. Femi Ayeni. He is the president of the Canadian Orthopedic Association. He's also a professor at McMaster University, and he is the division head of orthopedics at the same institution. And as you recall, he is the team doctor for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, as well as FC Fury. Welcome back, and thank you again for being here with us.
My pleasure. Always happy to be amongst friends and to talk about some interesting topics. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we normally start by asking, what your origin story was and how you got into orthopedics, but we covered that last year. So anyone interested, make sure you check out Dr. Ayeni's podcast from last year. It was awesome. In lieu of that, because you're the incoming president of the Canadian Orthopedic Association, maybe we could talk a little bit about your platform for the coming year.
I'm very excited to take on this role. It's it's something that I've looked up to some of the past leaders and looked at what they've done, and as I was thinking about running for the role and being selected by the nomination committee, I had to put together a plan for the year. And when I looked at all of my experiences, I found I love the concept of really mentoring the next generation of surgeons. So when you look at what I'm trying to accomplish in this year, which seems like a long time, but actually gets compressed down when you fit everything in life into it, is a year of engagement. So how can we get early career surgeons who are orthopedically interested, or at least are thinking of starting practice, how can we keep them engaged and enthusiastic about, to me, the best profession in the world?
And what a wonderful platform, because that aligns perfectly with your vision, your values, and really who you are as a surgeon and human being. So I'm very excited for that.
Oh, thank you. I've always looked at it, I told you, the folks last year on this, that I have 4 siblings, and we had to learn the team game early on. So looking at on a bigger scale at the landscape of orthopedics and some of the challenges we have systemically, when we really have an energized early career workforce that's really pushing and advocating in part of the organization, I think we collectively can really move the advocacy and engagement ball forward, quote unquote, and establish and succeed with many of the initiatives we're trying to, which is to enhance patient care, work together to reduce wait lists, enhance our outcomes, and introduce innovation safely. So many things we're all trying to achieve and accomplish. We can really do it by engaging the innovations and the ideas of the new generation of surgeons.
Not just the new, I think Dr. Peter McDonald was on a different episode this year, and he was talking about the engagement aspect in terms of getting the waitlist down as well. So I think you really have the entire COA behind you. I think we're doing a great job of getting the new leaders out. We have the Emerging Leaders program. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the Emerging Leaders program is really an exceptional part of the COA, and that really is finally a formal program where individuals, they're now 20 now, get training from experts and leaders across the country in really formalizing the skills you need to be successful. And it's experiential. We have a combination of didactic type sessions, small group sessions, and really just getting those skills that are required, from communication to delegation, and the things that naturally we do but don't have that formal training in. And by really involving an expert who's even non-medical and bringing perspectives from outside, that's really going to help that next generation of leadership take their skills to the next level. And it's good to have engaged surgeons in decision making, because when we withdraw from that and we just leave it to others to make decisions for us, in the long term it doesn't always benefit the field. So I think having surgeons in all phases, but especially those who are out there and have the energy and the time to really do this, is such an exceptional opportunity for anybody in the COA to take hold of.
Amazing. In your career, what really stuck with me last year was your approach to research. And again, for anyone who hasn't listened, make sure you check out that episode. But talk a little bit more about that, and can you walk us through your path to becoming a researcher?
Yeah, I over the years looked at the branding piece and how you could become an expert in a specific field. And in order to build a strong research career, you have to think about how to build your career vertically, which is you have a concept, a success earlier on, and then you keep building on that success. But part of that is seeking a novel area to study and picking your niche. And when I first started in 2009, I was looking for where to study, and I had what I call this triple threat approach to sports medicine. I was going to do some shoulder work research-wise and clinically, some knee work and some hip work. And so when I went into a search engine, PubMed, and I clicked in ACL of the knee, I got almost 10,000 publications. I went into rotator cuff, I got about 5,000 publications. Then I went to hip impingement and I got 500 or so publications. And so I thought to myself, if I could publish 5 papers out of 500, I'd be responsible for 1% of the world's literature. And that was the spark that went off that, aha, if you can be responsible for 1% of anything in the world, you could be a force. And that's how I think that step one is picking your niche and then just thinking about the long game. You know, it's very easy to get discouraged, and it's the whole concept of if you plant some seeds, you can't harvest on the same day, right? So you have to just think about, okay, this is a journey, this is a process. It's not really going to happen overnight. Yeah. And so we started off with the first few reviews and survey papers, and then eventually got into trials. So mentorship was also key and pivotal for me to grow, but I think that's really a key, is when you're thinking about getting into research, pick that field or that area that you will have success in, and then make sure it's not too saturated, yeah, so that you can stand out in your field.
How do you link that then with what you're passionate about too?
There's opportunity and then there's passion, and ideally they'd be overlapping circles, right? So, but in life things aren't always so clear cut. So you have to have some passion, but you also have to look for the opportunity, and they're never perfect one way or the other, but it's that purpose that when you think about it and you do some introspection, you have to sit back and go, okay, I really like this. This is what I'm passionate about. But if there's no opportunity, then eventually you may burn out from that. So you have to balance most things, and this is one of them where the opportunity is very important, as well as having the passion for what you're pursuing. Yeah. So when you can really get that field or that area or that specialty where you have both of them pulling you, you go, well, I see an opportunity for a job and I see a fellowship that I can pursue, but I'm also very passionate about it. That's the big win. Yeah. So I think it just is an introspective process. You have to ask yourself those difficult and challenging questions, and do it for you, is what I always say. Don't try and do it to impress an attending or staff or faculty or surgeon in chief or whoever. Just maybe take some time to think about what you're doing and why, and oftentimes that'll shine through as you look for that passion project that really has opportunities for you to grow and develop.
That's such a great point about doing it for you and not just trying to impress somebody, because ultimately that's what's going to matter. And like to your exact point, if you do it for you, it's going to be driven by passion, hopefully, or some kind of strategy that you believe in, and you'll see it through to completion, right?
Absolutely. It's very important to really think strategically about development of your career, and look at where you want to go. And I never was one to make plans, but now I do, and I go, what's my 5-year plan? What's my 10-year plan? And when it comes to your investments or your stock portfolio, you think about those, and same thing with your career. So I would encourage anybody just to think, okay, like what would things look like potentially in 5 years, and where do I want to be? Do I really want to be an educator, or somebody who's involved in high-level research, or maybe somebody doing a bit of both, or somebody who's into quality improvement? So when you plan that way and you have a fixed goal at that 5-year time point, then you can start to build around that. Do you need formal training in that area? Do you need to seek mentors in that specific area? If you are looking at a clinical area, do you want to have your patient population focus on a specific area? So once you have that 5-year goal, you can then work backwards and develop the skills and put in place some strategies to get you there. But sort of hoping it works out sometimes is what we tend to do, not always, but that trial and error once is very costly for energy, and we have limited amounts of energy because we all have other lives outside of our occupations. So really conserving that important energy is important. So don't be a trial and error strategist when it comes to your career. Really focus on having some intention behind it.
And that word intention is so important, because you are a person who has made all these decisions very intentionally, and obviously has succeeded very well for you. As you said, this is not something that's taught during our medical training. We don't get taught branding and finding our niche and making these decisions. How did you come by this, and how do you teach the next generation of people to do that when it's not part of our formal training program?
That's a great question. What I wanted to do when I was up and coming was I tended to try and study the greats. And so I'd look at just the biographies of all the great individuals, whether it's in sports or business, and I started reading a lot of books and understanding that, generally speaking, these are people who thought about the long game. They tended to put a lot of effort into whatever they did, and they were very determined to succeed. and they looked for areas where they had an opportunity that could really lead to success, and they layered one thing after the other, and it was a gradual, sustained effort, brick by brick, that built a house, and not just some natural inherent skill. So it was a process, and very rare was it an innate skill they had that helped them get to that level. So when I understood that, I started looking at and looking backwards and saying, well, what can I do to build that way? And I started aligning myself with people who I thought were experts. Like Mohit Bandari is one, and said, okay, well, he is a great in the field. How can I be like him, right? So aligning yourself with people who can really mentor you and can take the time was very important. And I always found that there was never really a monetary value or dollar amount that could really help. It's just the time. Can somebody really give you 20 or 30 minutes of really good advice? That is probably as important as anything else anybody can give you. So if you have somebody who's interested in your well-being and your progress, and they can give you that time, concentrated 20 minutes, that has so much value. And so over time, as I've sort of had my leadership roles, and I'm somebody who hates saying no to different things, I had many people reach out and ask for mentorship and help, and on LinkedIn or by email. And I recognize that initially my drives home from 4 to 5 were usually my wife and I talking about how was your day. She's a surgeon as well, and we talk back and forth. And I started filling it and saying, you know what, I can't talk right now, Teresa, but I'll call you back. I have a half an hour call with the resident or somebody from a different jurisdiction. Or so, and I started putting in that conversational time and filling it in with discussing mentorship, career strategies, how to grow, and then recognized that was not sustainable. I mean, that was actually time I enjoyed with my partner. So I wanted to claim that time back, and I started thinking, okay, what else can I do to help people develop? And that's how I came up with this Notch Academy concept, which is to say, okay, how can we get people to, on social media, get engaged and learn tips that I've learned over time? And that's how I started coming up with, in this phase of my career, a bit of a Notch Academy platform, which is all about early career development and trying to put the framework in place for future success. So that's something that, outside of that, that's my personal interest, but in the COA, I see us really focusing on that and see us looking at the diversity leadership series that we have, the career leadership platforms we discussed earlier on, and then just looking at the various podcasts and engagement opportunities where we're taking content and information from thought leaders and then driving it towards our membership. And again, leadership can occur at any phase of career. It doesn't have to be earlier on. It could be mid or even late career, and say, you know what, I can make a change and difference. And that's where things are headed for us in the COA, to really engage people and really help us push the field forward.
I love that, and just guiding the next generation to be hopefully a little smarter than we were.
Yeah, absolutely. No, completely, because I was one, there's residency, trial and error, like you go on a rotation. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll apply to these fellowship programs. Oh no, not at all, I'm not doing that anymore. And then you've put in so much time in looking at fellowships and opportunities and future jobs, and then you change your mind and then you go somewhere else, and you do that rotation after rotation. At least I did, and I found it to be very time consuming. And of course, mentorship does take time as well, so yeah.
But the part that I love also is, you kind of said it, this whole mentorship thing just started to cut into time with your partner, right?
Absolutely.
And so having something like this, it just links so well into the well-being and the kind of balance. Hopefully it's another step to avoiding that burnout.
Yeah, 100%. And so if you want to scale something and grow it and have people have access to you, and you can't mentor every single trainee across the country or across jurisdictions, there's got to be a way where we can, socialize ideas about, getting together and talking about leadership. So, it's an exciting project that I'm embarking on, but I'm also thinking the COA is well ahead of us and many organizations in this realm of trying to get people engaged, trying to get them to understand how important they are as contributors to the field, and then recognizing that we are the best advocates for the field. If we're not out there championing our causes and our patients, then we may not make the progress we want to make. But if we have, energized, young, mid-career, and even experienced orthopedic surgeons working together, that could be just so great. And actually, to broaden that scope, the experience factor, when you merge it with the innovation and contemporary thoughts from our early career individuals, and you mix that, the generational thinking together, boy, we could be a powerful force.
Absolutely, I love that idea. I mean, that's a great platform. So switching gears a little bit, you are also a prolific researcher and very successful research career. Is that something you always wanted to do, or is it something you kind of fell into?
I fell into it. I initially had thought I'd finish my residency, and I'm from Northern Ontario, so I was looking forward to having a community-based job up in the Northern Ontario, like Timmins was the town where I was really thinking of going to because it was close to where I grew up. It's about 12 hours north of Toronto, lots of snow, lots of outdoor work and stuff like that in the wintertime especially, and I was really thinking that would be the place for me. And I ran into somebody named Mohit Bandari, and he said, you know what, sports medicine is great and you could do that, but wouldn't it be wonderful if you could actually add the evidence to sports medicine and your procedures and help us think about it in an evidence-based way? And the ecosystem we have at McMaster was so supportive of pursuing a career like that. And that's when I started thinking to myself, well, it's possible for me to work through the academic channels and work with a leader in the field and develop my academic thinking. Yeah. And initially it was hard. I remember getting my first drafts of papers back, and it'd be all when it could, written in red and comments everywhere. And I didn't take that though personally, which I think is very important, because if you really want to improve, you take all feedback. You may not agree with it, but if you're able to receive that feedback and just almost depersonalize it and not take it as a personal attack, then you can kind of be, okay, I'm going to get better next time, and then the next time. And years into it, you really start to write in a very good way and think clearly and think about impactful questions. So I think it's just about being receptive to feedback as the first stage of being able to grow and develop.
So for new researchers or young researchers, what are the couple of the tips that you wish you had known when you started researching?
I wish I had known the value and importance of mentors and how to be a good mentee. I think that sometimes as a mentee, when I was coming up, I made the mistake of thinking of it as almost like a crisis management service. And I just call my mentor when I had a problem. And can you solve this? Can you solve this? And so really when you think about a mentor, they want to know about not just the problems, but how well you're doing. So sharing more with and being open in communication is important. So if your mentor is aware of what your plans are, what succeeded, what did not succeed, where you failed and where you intend to go, and how can you learn from those failures, that really helps you have a richer relationship with somebody who's coaching you up, and you develop a little bit with more clarity. But if you simply, like I had in the past, just call whenever there's a problem, and then you don't talk for 6, 7, 8 months, then you just have so many gaps in understanding where you're headed. So I think that's an important piece in that I've learned from, is really to make sure that it's a bi-directional relationship. I'm asking to help my mentor as well. Yes. It may be some things they're challenged with that I can help. Yeah. You'd be surprised, some things like maybe technological issues that they may have, and they're maybe looking at, okay, how do I get this gadget and this device to work, and you can help. So I've started offering help and also being a bit more open with communication, which I think is pivotal.
So it really is about that two-way street. So I think a lot of the mentees sometimes feel they're a burden, so they're afraid to reach out more often. I certainly felt that when I was a mentee, but it's actually very reassuring to hear you say that.
Absolutely. I think when somebody is really invested in your success, there is a very low burden of mentorship, because you're celebrating that and it's part of a lived experience. So if I have somebody who I'm helping and advising, and they succeed and they call me to say they got into a fellowship program, I'm happy. That's a positive thing. They had their first child. I'm very happy for them, right? So how can you not be happy for your trainee who's succeeding in not just orthopedics but beyond? Yeah. So I tend to be very happy when I hear those positive updates. And I also share in the agony of defeat, quote unquote, when things don't go as well. So I'm like, I wish I could have helped, but we'll learn from it, we'll get better from it, and then we'll regroup and come back with a better approach next time. So I think those are the strategies whereby, if you think about it, mentors are there to enjoy your successes with you, and also to share in the growing opportunities when things don't go as well. So just being open, transparent is very helpful.
And you said it so well on last season's podcast about standing on the shoulders of giants, right? I mean, nobody does it alone. No. And so this is the role that we all now, as surgeons, can play for the next generation, right?
Well, absolutely. I think that, as a surgeon, you're a community leader, you're a leader probably in your household. There's so many, you don't have to be in an academic environment to be that mentor. You could really mentor, I mean, people that have been the most impactful for me are people who just, people in the non-medical folks in the fracture clinic and how they, lead their teams, people who are the administrative staff and how they work with, crisis, so mentorship and learning, if your mind is open enough to learn from others, I mean, it's a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for being such a great leader and mentor to so many. So before we finish, we always like to ask, is there anything in your career or in your personal life that you want to share with us or maybe broadcast out there for people to know?
I think that this COA year, my goals are to really drive up engagement, and I think through the programs we have existing in the COA, there are multiple leadership streams. I think we want to engage on social media with the new generation of surgeons who are more active on various platforms. But more importantly, I have one secret goal, which is to take a selfie with every Canadian resident.
Amazing.
So residents, I'm coming for you, and fellows too. In fact, anybody who's involved in the Canadian orthopedics, I think they're all wonderful people. They work hard. They deserve the best, and I want to connect with them. So selfie challenge coming your way.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Selfie Challenge 2024-25.
I'll take it. Yeah.
And final question, as always, you're such a wonderful mentor. If people want to reach out to you, to the COA, or to the Notch Academy, what's the best way to do that?
Just reach out on LinkedIn. We have lots of, you'll catch me on LinkedIn. I'll happily connect with you. And we have excellent advice on social media about careers. And we try and do a Notch short every week to kind of discuss all the challenges we all face as we grow our careers.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Dr. Ayeni, thank you again. I'm very excited to follow you this year during your presidency, and I will probably see you next year in the carousel again.
Absolutely. Looking
We'll book
forward
you
to
now.
it. Yes. Fist bump.
Thanks
yes.
a lot.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you. All right.
you.